Oh, shalom, Rastafari. Greetings. Greetings, my brothers and sisters. We're going to continue right here. We was touching on this video right here. Actually began off for a search of a video I had recommended to some who have asked us concerning sexual sins, pornography, other such issues or related issues. And I pointed out a video, Freedom from Sexual Sins by Steve Quayle. And there's a doctor on there as well. And I really like what the doctor has to say and how relevant what the doctor is saying also with the science of the mind, the pineal and the pituitary gland, and the seat of the soul, actually that third eye, which they call the eye of Horus, and then they try to say that's the eye of Lucifer, because they are trying to write this evil consciousness, almost like a pre-consciousness of evil, right? In other words, to overwrite on the true nature, to corrupt. That's what they call corruption of the true nature of things. This video has a lot of information. The audio part where the sister is giving her testimony. She is also being a witness as well as revealing what you can do, right? I mean, these entities are out there harvesting the genetics of all the races of the human family. That's what they call the Human Genome Project, and it's connected with mind programming or soul psychic programming, right? As well as with breeding, right? Various levels of breeding projects. Now, all of these are very deep issues. In other words, there's a lot of information on these issues, and there's also some disinformation out there. But if one is guided by the spirit, the irid of truth, right? And the spirit of truth, and trust in the King of Kings and his Christ, he will show you. You will know. And as you grow in the Christ consciousness, the black Christ consciousness of the Word, of the Bible, even using a King James Version, because there's some things to really be understood about the King James Version, right? The King James Version. For those, see, a lot of y'all don't have the access right now, so you have to go from low degrees to high degrees, right? And be mature in knowledge. Because a lot of ones who have a lot of kind of facts and figures, right? But they're really very immature and there's no application, right? There's no application. So it's just a kind of a head knowledge. We don't want to come forward and give one a lot of head knowledge and quote a lot of facts, so forth and so on, that are not really applicable or that you cannot know for yourself. We want you to listen, right? Do your own homework and do your own study and to begin to see it for yourself. And then you have your own testimony. You have your own evidence. Now, there's a particular page coming up, a particular link that I had on pause. I think in the previous video, I had a video on still, and I was getting certain pictures together because I wanted to expound on what was in this particular still, because this is a reasonment. The Holy Spirit's been reasoning with me about a couple of specific issues. One was on black eugenics. Right now, there is positive so-called eugenics and there's negative eugenics. Right, we're in a phase right now of what they call a negative eugenics. If I were to give you an example of positive eugenics would be, pause this right here. Positive eugenics would be when they put iodine in the water. When they had put iodine in the water years ago, it was not really legal because they were forcing almost like a medication. But the fruit of that was that IQs really rose. You know, a lot of IQs rose, health rose. It was like it proved that it was good for the human being, as iodine is. Iodine is very, very important. What they put into the water is these like fluoride and bromine, which in a sense is like a wasp to a bee. A wasp and a bee look similar, but it's the bee that produces honey. You see, so iodine is like that bee that produces for the human being that honey of healing, that honey of healing to the nature of the human being, and also helps things like takes one out of that coma state. A lot of the waters, right, and the drinks and the alcohol. We could touch on PW. What was this? Botha, I think it was Botha, who in apartheid, near the end of apartheid, talk about all the research they was doing on using a chemical level of warfare. We already know about the Tuskegee experiments that had went on involving black people, black men in particular. We know about other sort of experiments, whether it is the Margaret Sangers and the so-called eugenics, but really it's genocide, the black genocide, the Ma'afa. So these things are not things that have not been even publicly admitted and known it to be true. People denied these things years ago, but the evidence has come out to prove the naysayers wrong. As the evidence will also come out to prove the naysayers to what we and others have said to be wrong. But if ones don't hear and heed, they might not be witnesses. They might not live to see that proof because they would have ignored the word to the wise, or the wise word, and gone after foolishness. So anyway, be that as it may, I hope you got to read a little bit of this right here, right? There's this Skywalker individual, Duke Skywalker, right, regarding women with daddy issues. Now, we know that even the fatherlessness and the broken families within the black community is not because a generation of black people just woke up one day and said, you know what, we want to be irresponsible. It wasn't like that. It was actually part of what was called COINTELPRO. And COINTELPRO is still going on, not that operation, but basically what COINTELPRO means is counterintelligence. All of this that you're seeing on the screen, all of this that many are saying is so well known as far as being truth to those who know what the truth about this is, but you are led to believe. This is a COINTELPRO gender wars going on between black male and black female. It's a very clever divide and conquer. We're not saying that black men and women don't have issues, but they have to look at the seed in order to really be able to identify the real roots of the matter. It's not just the roots. You see, the seed produces roots, right? The seed produces roots, but the fruit, you don't even have to dig down that deep to the roots. You could look at the fruit. So we're looking at the fruit of what's going on, how programmed young black men end up as players and hustlers, and black women as hoochie booty shakers. High promiscuity, compensates for the much love and attention. How do we come to this state? How do we come to this point in 40 years? This is a part of basically a successful, at our expense, a successful psyops conspiracy, a successful programming, right? And true, it's not just limited to black people, because the poison that you put in the water for a next man, eventually when you forget about it or you take a drink, you're going to get sick with it too. You see what I'm saying? So creation, right? Creation is at a precipice right now. It's at a consciousness precipice, right? It's at a conscious, we're in a spiritual warfare. I mean, look at these individuals you're seeing right here. Henry Kissinger, Gloria Steinem. Henry Kissinger, we know what his involvement with the Ethiopian famine was. Gloria Steinem over here with the so-called feminist movement, and how the whole Black Power movement was basically divided and conquered on this same level. And we've begun to see a resurgence of a Black Power movement. And once again, we're seeing this divide and conquer programming, right? This divide and conquer programming. And y'all know this book. A lot of people will try to get all intellectual about these things, but they really don't want to go deep enough. You know, they call it the monarch butterfly. I call it the Moloch. It's still the Moloch. Their monarch is Moloch. You know what I mean? Their monarch is Moloch. I hope I could find this particular still. I'm looking at the screen and I'm narrating some of this right here. But you really, please check this video out for yourself while it's still there. Because she's had many other videos, and many have had videos that really, in my opinion, are hard-hitting. I mean, they're hard-hitting not because I'm not familiar with some of the information, but how it's all been put together. You know, how it's been put together, it's been presented, and with a lot of love and a lot of prayer and hope that the lost sheep wake up before they end up in the slaughter. Right? And many have already gone to the slaughterhouse. You know, some, not just physically, we're speaking about psychologically. You know, the black community has ended up in the slaughterhouse. Humanity has, because there goes black people, so goes the world. You really have to understand that if you know the truth. You really have to see the connection to that. And these people, these human agents of these satanic alien forces are really so, I can't even say blind. They are so deceptive at what they are doing right in your face. And they know this information is out there, but because of the successful level of the trauma, y'all are in the rehab, right? And rehab was another name for Egypt. What do we say in some earlier videos a couple of years ago about the spiritual Egypt, right? But when we say spiritual Egypt, we know folks are going to look at ancient Egypt because they don't understand the Christ mind on Egypt. What do we mean by a spiritual Egypt? I think it's coming up right now. It's right around this particular section over here. She's talking about, you know, certain movies, you know, and certain, first it's a cultural warfare, right? It's a cultural warfare because it's what gets across to your hearts, your minds, your feelings, your emotion. A lot of these movies and even sitcoms, to sit calm while the programming laugh, and it goes in, you know, and before you know it, the whole community, the whole spirit of the people basically changes, but it also makes them more vulnerable for the next level, right? For the next level of this double prong attack. It's both a cultural, here we go, pause it right there. It's both a cultural and a chemical warfare. Now, what do we have right here? This is very interesting. So the cultural and the chemical warfare. So on black eugenics, I want you to read this with me. It says right here, unlike the divide and rule Antichrist of the Judeo-Christian biblical colonialism, see Matthew chapter 10, verse 34 to 35. The Christ consciousness of the Messiahs, and here we mean the black Messiahs, right? The Christ consciousness of the black Messiahs incarnating through indigenous African bloodlines, and we're speaking of the indigenous Ethiopian, Hebrew, and the Beta Israel, the Falashas of the West bloodlines, that's our bloodlines, people, are born to black Madonnas. See, I've been on this theme about black Madonnas. We've also been touching on some of the goddess program, which is also part of a subset of the whole so-called feminist program, which all connects, right? Which all really connects on that antichrist side of the equation. You see, first they use the religious context, but the conquering line of the tribe of Judah, a black man from Africa, broke that up. And this is one reason why you see they went to a so-called New Age kind of religion, a mix, a dash of this and that, a kind of a gumbo of different things. Why the Anglo-Americans went from that Judeo-Christian thing that they was riding on for a moment, and we see around from the 30s to the 60s, about the 70s, all of that breaks down. And that's because the conquering line of the tribe of Judah. You see what I'm saying? That's actually, we're seeing prophetic signs come to pass, and only the remnant, right? Only the remnant really picked up on it. Now, the Christ consciousness of the black messiahs is to incarnate through those indigenous African and African American Hebrew, Hebraic, Ethiopian Hebrew bloodlines, but being born to black Madonnas. You see, sent here to this matrix as rebels of the status quo, right? But also to bring deliverance, strength, love, and peace to our community and families. That is the fulfillment of the prophetic word right there. Now, why is this, right? Why is this important, right? Why is this important? Well, this is important for a few key reasons right here. The area where it speaks of the Christ conscious, right? Really the Christ consciousness of the black messiahs. It should be of the black messiahs incarnating through indigenous black bloodlines. This is why they do everything in their power, right, to divide and rule black male-female relations. So we get caught up. If I'm a male, I get caught up on what the black female she's a female. Might have been a victim, right? A victim of what we address, the Moloch, right? The Moloch slaves, the Moloch project, victims of that. And the male is a victim as well, because we know his victimization from Willie Lynch. And her victimization also goes back to Willie Lynch. But since we're in a so-called, quote, new world order, and at the dawn of a new age, some of those old archetypes, right, are no longer successful. So they have adapted a new system. And here's where you see the media, the culture. Here's where you see the culture wars, right, in the media. And we see a lot of changes. The new normal with the homosexual, the homo-fascism is on the rise, right? And they're very aggressive. You see, so it's basically to have black people as the breeders, right? And then they can so-called adopt the children. So it's almost like creating a scenario, situation to prove the black male and the black female as being unfit. After all this time, they become unfit all of a sudden, right? It's not without provocation. We know what the provocation is. We need to apply what the solution is. And that's the Christ consciousness of the black Messiah. The Christ consciousness of the black Messiah will produce that new man in the black man and the black woman, so that the black messiahs, right, that righteous seed, that righteous generation would be incarnate and born having that through the right DNA, right? And see, this is why we have this two-pronged attack. One is against our soul, the culture wars, and then the chemical attack is against our bodies, right? And then added to that with particular emphasis to the black womb and to the black woman and to the black family, and in particular to the black male, is the war against the unborn child, right? And thus we have the Margaret Sanger, we have the genocide, planned murderhood, so-called Planned Parenthood, right? Which specifically targeted, right, this fallen but rising up. You see, black people were rising up when they were targeted by this COINTELPRO, by the abortion, right, by the abortion plague. It was a plague, and this is not to cast any dispersion on those who might have gone for it, because we all have been victims, right? But we all don't want to recognize, and it's not for a pity party, right? It's for conscious and sober reflection, right? Acknowledgement. The truth is out there, right? The truth is out there. We need to get the truth in here, right? Within our heads and our hearts, right? As that seed, right? That seed of life, right? And the spirit, the irit, the spirit of truth, right? The truth may be an offense, but it is not a sin. Here's what the war is really all about. This explains this very beautifully right here. We see the Antichrist image. She mentions about the Fourth Reich, the neo-Nazi world order, right? The Nazi world order, NWO. People think it's new. It's a neo-Nazi. It's a Nazi. The genetic harvesting, MK Ultra, right? The mind control, the Moloch project, COINTELPRO, psychological operation. Remember back in the days we used to say psych, such and such. What? Psych, eugenics. Now we need to break down this word eugenics. That's what we wanted to get into, because eugenics actually means good genes, right? It means good genes. There's a positive eugenics, as we mentioned earlier, with the iodine in the water some years ago. And not in the water, well, in the water, but also in the salt. They put it in the salt. I think I said water before, but they put it in the salt, right? And they saw IQ rates increase and, smarter children and everything like that. And they said, oh, we don't want that, right? So there was almost like a blip of consciousness and awareness and education, right? But they didn't want that. So what they wanted to do is to dumb us down. So we see all these funny colored drinks and a lot of other things come in to target our community specifically, right? But humanity generally, right? Becoming human guinea pigs, the TV, right? That box, right? That image, the image of the beast. So there's positive eugenics. Positive eugenics would be us recognizing how our birth rate has been thrown off, recognizing how we've been culturally and chemically polluted, right? Recognizing what the real paradigm, as we see right here, is, right? The soul inverted, right? Upside down, and the soul right side up, right? We've been inverted, right? We've been inverted. The whole alters and triggers, right? The positive eugenics, right, would have us take responsibility and proactivity, right? Proactivity for our present and our future survival, and would dictate to us what sort of situation we really are in. Here's what it's all about. Let me show you. This is what it's all about, all right? All that ghetto gaggers and all the rest of that. You say, where does this come from? Where is this war between black males and females, where they make it seem like, well, it's easier, right, by programming, by design, to have an interracial relationship. And this is nothing against those who truly find love, and honor, and some sort of reverence in the opposite race, mutually, before God and man. Nothing wrong with that. But we know that there's a programming here to say that this image is bad, because this image, right? What does this image say? Right? We give you two different images. One is the Ethiopian Virgin Mary of Haile Selassie, the one on the left hand, and the next one is the Black Madonna, right? The Black Madonna. Some say, I think it might be an old Egyptian, but it's from one of the churches, right? From one of the Orthodox, non-Roman Catholic, non-Jesuit churches. And even there, they have a picture like this, that the Pope and them have enough sense, right, to have that in the background, in their back chapel, and they pray to the two guys playing this end time game of the two horns and everything. But why is this image? We just explained to you, it's about the Christ consciousness, right, of the Black Messiah. We're in the time that's called the Black Awakening, right? We're in a time of ascent. We're actually in a time of Shavuot, right? Which is also linked among many who have studied this area of scripture with what's known as the rapture. But the rapture has been misinterpreted. The rapture is the rapture in our spirit, rapture in our mind state. Our mind is raptured with the Christ conscious, the Christ mind. We start to see through, right? We start to see through these veils. We start to recognize what is really happening, what is really going on, as well as see the way of escape, the way of overcoming in the King of Kings and through his Christ. So this image, right, this image spells disaster for the reptilian agenda, the fallen angel agenda, right? The fallen angel agenda. Now, how the whole hierarchies, the principalities, not to even get all out there. Some people like to talk about these things on that level. We want to talk about things that are a little more close to home, that affect us, right? That affect us, that affect our relationships. So we have to recognize that when, we think that the men think the woman, what's wrong with the black woman, what's wrong with the black man? A lot of this is programming. A lot of this, as they say, is by design, right? By design. Just start to recognize that it's by design, right? And once you start to recognize it's by design, you will begin to see, proverbially speaking, how deep the rabbit hole goes. But you don't have to go as deep as the rabbit hole goes. Come out of Babylon. Come out of the confusion. Start to recognize and receive the truth and study these things for yourself, brothers and sisters. All right, look a bit more. Wanted to touch on this, and I hope and pray that it will at least inspire you to check out more for yourself and to share this, download it, post it up to your channels, and share this with those who are willing to listen. All right. Shalom, Ras Teferi.